Hey, this is Jim McDonald. Welcome to episode 238 of the PowerCast. We're going to jump right back in with Joel Jamieson right where we left off. However, if you enjoy this type of content and you know somebody who could benefit from it, particularly from the recovery stuff in both episodes, send it to them, tag them. I think there's a way actually within YouTube now to send things to your friends directly. You can obviously always, copy, paste, whatever. But the best way for people to find out about the show is for other people who enjoy it to share it with them. So we really would appreciate that. Like this episode, we'll be back next week with Stan Efferding.
Support for this episode of the PowerCast comes from Precision Nutrition. Go to get.pn/PowerCast for your free book on the role of genetics in fitness and nutrition. That's get.pn/PowerCast. Reebok.com, home of the Legacy Lifting Shoe, the official shoe of the PowerCast at Reebok.com. 8Man Strong apparel for people who lift heavy weights at 8manstrong.com. Compex Muscle Stim products at CompexUSA.com. Use the code PowerCast for an additional 28% off all but the lowest price model. HowMuchYouBench.net. Use the code PowerCast for 15% off slingshots and free shipping on orders over $100. And Bodybuilding.com, the world's largest fitness website and supplement store. Bodybuilding.com has free plans for every level. Visit bodybuilding.com today to become your best self.
Recorded live in West Sacramento, California, this is Mark Bell's PowerCast. Standing just to the left of Jim McDonald, here's your host, Mark Bell.
What are some things that you've noticed in training people, especially working with athletes? I've kind of found myself, Jim, you probably experienced this quite a bit yourself as well. When you're lifting and you don't have like a goal on lockdown, but you have a general goal of like just wanting to feel better, wanting to lift more and stuff like that. Sometimes your lifts tend to go up. It's like you stopped like being so worried about it, I guess. And then sometimes to kind of go along with that same thing, someone may come to me and say like, I really want to lose. I'm too fat. I want to lose some weight, and I may have them just concentrate on their training, on their lifting. Yep. And we'll talk about diet, coming up, but we're going to do this. And a lot of times when people start to exercise and they start to have their nutrition and they start to have everything kind of based around performance, a lot of times that's when the aesthetics start to get better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Have you noticed that with a lot of the people that you work with?
No, definitely. I think the biggest thing is you have to, in my mind at least, is get people to focus more on the process than the goal, right? The goal becomes meet this process. Like we want you to get these training sessions in. We want you to meet this nutritional goal. We want you to get this sleep. If you start focusing on making the process what they're focused on versus like just hitting one number or just watching a scale weight go down, it makes it much easier for them to actually do the things in the process versus to just nonstop hammer on the scale weight without realizing their scale weight's not going down because you're not following the process. So I think that's the biggest thing is setting goals that are smaller, short term. Just your goal should be to get in the workouts for the week properly. Your goal should be to get in the activity level we want you to get in. Your goal should be to get the number of hours of sleep we want you to get. It should be to eat the food you want you to eat. If you make those your goals, everything else happens. But if you just make the only goal lose weight and you don't actually focus on the process, it doesn't work.
And you're also building momentum.
Absolutely.
If you knock off a goal or two, a lot of times you're like, oh shit, I deadlifted 315 last week, and now I'm starting to look a little bit better. And then you weigh yourself, and you're like, I lost 2 pounds, I lost 3 pounds.
Look better, feel better thing. Right. That's really where the feedback loop is, even more so than the scale, I think, for most people.
Well, I think the thing too is if people are only focused on the end result of the scale or if that's only what they're focused on, as soon as that goal maybe doesn't seem like they're getting there, they're not making progress, it's incredibly frustrating. And then they either double down or they back out completely, right? So if I think I'm going to lose 10 pounds and all of a sudden I've only lost 5, I'm like, shit, I didn't lose 10 pounds, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm just focused on the process, I'm like, oh, I lost 5 pounds, I feel better. So I think, again, it's just that mindset of what do we get people to focus on and what is the goal? The goal is just follow the process and eventually trust that you will feel and look better. A lot of people find it easier and it's less stressed on them, essentially, that every time they step on the scale, it has to be this or that.
Yeah, managing that stress level can be tough.
Yeah, I personally lost about 20 pounds or so right now, and I would like to lose more, but I've been pretty stuck, but I've also been like, I know just there are other changes and positive changes, and so I'm like, I can't really stress about it too much. I mean, eventually more weight will come off, and that's fine. And
well, the truth is, sometimes you put in like 90%. Let's just say no one's perfect, right? You put in like 90% towards your diet, and you're working really hard. You can also ease off of that a little bit and probably cheat a little bit more, have a little bit more calories. Probably for like a week or two, and your body weight probably won't change that much.
Yeah.
Because you may already be doing, maybe just a little bit more than enough than you maybe need,
Yeah, I've always found
sometimes going back and forth between that can help you lose and restart.
Oh yeah, I've always found like this is really interesting. I've looked at HRV patterns for like years. There's a cyclical pattern to how the body works. Like there's not a linear pattern. Like nobody's HRV goes poof. No one's body fat goes poof. Like there's ebbs and flows, and that's just the way the body works. I've always found, 2 or 3 weeks of really adhering to your diet, and then a week maybe you eat a little bit differently, you reintroduce some things, up your calories a little bit, let the body stabilize, and you go back at it. That works better in my experience than just trying to go 12 weeks straight diet.
Being on a slog.
It's hard to realize, but basically everything works the same fucking way. There's really nothing in life that's like really stagnant. That's really just a straight line across. If you think about like your mood. And if you wake up and you're like, I want to be in a really good mood today. Like, this is going to be fucking awesome. I want to like feel great. It's like that doesn't really work. Like sometimes your mood is good. Yeah. Sometimes everything just aligns. And then sometimes you go to make your coffee in the morning with your protein shake and it explodes all over your fucking kitchen. Then you try it again, then you drop it later or whatever. Like just sometimes a day, certain days are a wreck. But I think that your diet, your nutrition, your training, your weight, your body fat comp, all these things, they end up being like that, where there's going to be a lot of ups and downs.
Yep.
And you might as well make some changes and try some different things and kind of see where it takes you.
Yeah, you just got to, it comes down to mindset, right? If you go into a program, and especially this is a mistake I see a lot of trainers make, is client comes in and says, hey, I want to lose X number of pounds. Trainer says, okay, great, we can do that, no problem, let's get started. Well, unless you actually gave them a realistic goal, first of all, they're going to be frustrated when they don't reach that.
Right.
But second of all, like, they don't understand, like, hey, some days you're going to get a scale and your weight's up. Like, water weight goes up and down. Like, what you eat is going to affect your scale weight.
Like, kicking the balls. You're like, I weigh 3 pounds more. What
yeah,
happened?
Exactly. And then as soon as that happens, the client's like, shit, this trainer sucks. I didn't lose weight.
You start
right?
freaking out.
So you've got to set the right expectations, and you got to have them to understand what the process actually looks like. People, the problem too is people read a magazine and they see a cover of, oh, I'm going to lose 4 inches in 30 days, and then it doesn't happen. And like, well, shit, Shape Magazine said I was going to do it, and I didn't, right? So they get frustrated.
I try to give people as much information as I can, whenever I'm talking about diet, when I'm talking about losing weight and stuff like that, because, I may tell someone, oh, I lost, 40 pounds, 50 pounds, or whatever it might be, but I've done it before, so I don't want it to ever be misleading and have somebody else be like, I don't understand why I'm not getting similar results. Yep. I try to be open that I've used PEDs and I still use them, because I don't want the information to get clouded. There's a lot of information about these different diets and different stuff, and people aren't always telling you the full story.
Oh, yeah. No, man, everyone's always going to put their best foot forward, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, I lost 40 pounds. I didn't tell you I was on GH and test and 15 other things. And like,
right.
So, well, again, people read bodybuilding magazines or they read fitness magazines, and you see their physiques of the people, and they're like, I don't care how much you trained, you never look like those people, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are the cream of the crop genetically. It's the same thing. Like, I watch people play football or I watch people fight. Like, I could go to the gym, train every day the rest of my life. I'm not going to be, that. So you've just got to, again, to me, it's just people need to really realize what's feasible and that they're going to feel better and they're going to look better, but they may not look like a fitness celebrity, right?
Right.
And it's going to take longer than they think. And if they buy into that from the beginning,
it's going to take longer.
It's going to take longer.
That makes
Here's
sense.
a rule in life: it's going to take longer than you think, and it's going to cost you more damn money.
Yeah,
like that is just the rule of life, right? I mean, nothing's ever done early and for cheaper. It takes longer and costs more money. That's just life. It's the same thing with diet,
Well, the longer the process takes, the more it's going to cost you every single time.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the way that it goes.
Yep.
There's a lot of different people out there, coaching and doing things well. Who else do you see in the community that's executing really well?
I like Mike Hartman, or Mike Robertson, Bill Hartman. I talked about them quite a bit.
Yeah.
They do a great job. There's a guy,
Robertson used to talk quite a bit about the health of the back and stuff like that, your lower back.
Yeah, he does, they do more of everything, honestly.
Recovery type stuff.
Yeah, they do a lot. Well,
I know. Yeah, it's like sometimes you get pigeonholed into.
Yeah, they do a lot of different
somebody does
stuff. I just
one
think their gym at IFAS is really well executed. There's a guy named near me named Luca Hosevar who's got a really well executed program in gym, runs bigger ground, does a lot of business related coaching as well. I just listened to a guy, Mark Fisher from Mark Fisher Fitness. I thought was fantastic in his approach to understanding his community. He's got his gym in New York with dildos hanging off the ceiling, and he's killing it. I mean, I'm not joking. Yeah, I'm not joking. Look it up.
Which gym is this?
It's called Mark Fisher Fitness. He's got dildos on the ceiling. He's got
Sadly, we have no internet yet. I would love to look
unicorns
that up.
and all kinds of stuff, but it's his market. He knows how to make it work.
That's amazing.
So I think there's a lot of guys out there that do a really good job of giving to me, it's not about the trainer that knows the most information. It's about the trainers that can actually deliver to what their clients need in order to get the results they need. And those are two different things. I know a lot of really, really smart trainers that suck because they don't know how to give their clients what they actually need to get better. And they're almost too smart for their own good, right? Like you can't spend an hour sweating over 3 sets versus 4 sets or an incline versus flat bench if you can't help your clients actually make changes in their lifestyle.
Well, you're going to have to be able to motivate people.
You got to be able to motivate people. You got to create the environment in the gym, and you got to create the structure and the education. So to me, it's not just about who's really intelligent or, yeah, there you go.
That's the main page right there.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
He's got a feather bow with a unicorn.
There's lots of guys like that I would say I think do really well in terms of they know their audience and their customers. They know how to get their clients results. They create the right community. They build a successful business. To me, that's the hard thing is putting all that together, creating a program that works and is successful from a business and a results standpoint. There's that's a tricky thing to do.
Yeah, I think it becomes more impressive when somebody is executing at a high level with multiple things. That's when you're like, oh shit, like that guy's got his shit together.
Oh yeah, I've always admired. Precision Nutrition and Berardi, what those guys have done too, is really impressive the industry. I mean, their ability
they sponsor
to
the podcast.
Yeah, they
That's
also
how smart
sponsor.
they
Yeah,
are.
well, there you go. JB, I've known him a long time, and he's a great guy. And Phil, I've never met, but heard tons of great things about. I think those guys, in terms of a company that does good things and is very responsible in the way they go about them and successful, obviously. I've heard stories. I worked with Nate Green, who worked with them for a long time, and Nate does a lot of work with me now. And he basically said, like, he'd been there for a few years, and he told them, like, hey, I'm ready to move on. I've loved my time here. Your company's amazing. I just kind of want to branch out and do my own thing. And they gave him some 9-month salary to just go find his time and figure out what he wanted to do. Like their approach to taking care of their employees to me was really, really impressive. On top of just the fact that it's a really good company that does good things. So
yeah, I think that's interesting. And different companies will have a different approach. Somebody comes to them and says, hey, I think I'm going to move on. And they'll be like, all right, see you later. And you're probably better off saying, hey, branding the person almost in a way. Like when you think about Nike, like if you have somebody walk into your gym and they formerly worked with Nike, but they currently work for Amazon, somebody would be like, oh, he's a Nike guy. It's kind of like you're forever branded, forever attached to greatness, to a great company. And I think people are kind of better off kind of taking that approach than they are being like, yeah, fuck you.
No, exactly. I agree.
It's not gonna do you any good. What do you think? What do you think some people can do that they may not be aware of to help with their health and fitness? Maybe other than just going to the gym 5 days a week or something like that.
Yeah, I think the easiest things is most people literally are not aware of their caffeine intake. If you're having, I'm not saying caffeine's a devil, but if
you're not saying don't ever take caffeine.
No, I'm just saying don't live on it, right?
Be aware.
A lot of people, maybe I'm biased because in Seattle everyone's on Starbucks, but number one is be aware of if you're having 5 cups of coffee or 6 cups of coffee, or it's just a continual thing, like cutting back on that is actually in the long run to make you feel better. And then the second thing is just sleep. Most people really aren't aware of how much sleep impacts them because they lie to themselves, oh, I'm getting enough, or I power through it, or I'm used to it. But people aren't aware of sleep. Like I saw a couple of studies, like 1 or 2 hours of sleep less for 2 nights reduces your testosterone by 15-20%. Like it's a significant number, right? Like the things just from those perspectives, like mitigate your stimulants, like use them when necessary, but not all day, and improve your sleep quality. And aside from nothing else, I guarantee you will see better results.
Yeah, there's been all kinds of research with sleeping, right? I mean, it shows that your insulin sensitivity can be really fucked up. There's all
cortisol.
Cortisol, gets, a lot of it gets screwed up.
That's actually the one of two reasons I have this thing. One of them is sleep, and the other one is just wanted to have some idea what my resting heart rate looked like.
Yeah, what is it?
About 70, 71, 72.
Yeah, you want to get that down.
Yeah,
get it down to 50s. Like I found mid to upper 50s for most people is going to be a good, healthy range.
I've never been even close to that.
Well,
never, ever.
Gotta just get some conditioning.
So, okay, this is perfect. So how do we work on this? So I know Jim has been lifting more often. You've been doing a little bit of cardiovascular training. What do you think something that he can implement?
He's going to need more cardiovascular training. I mean, there's a reason that marathon runners have heart rates in the 40s. The more metabolic aerobic work you do, the bigger the heart gets.
Right.
The fewer times it needs to beat, and the parasympathetic system.
What kind of cardiovascular training?
A mix,
all?
honestly, a mix. I mean, that's
right?
all. I mean, it's the same thing. Would you tell someone to lift weights only max out?
Right.
No. Would you tell someone only lift weights and do 20 reps? No. You probably tell them to use a range of reps, right?
Do it all, yeah.
It's the same thing with metabolic conditioning. Like people have this misconceived notion, like, oh, I just need high intensity. No. You actually need a mixture of intensities. You need some lower intensity. You need some higher intensity.
What about something like walking? There's been a lot of research
walking, absolutely.
recently showing, some of the benefits of walking. But is walking hard enough to?
Probably. To go from a very, very low level to a more moderate level, it's probably enough. But beyond that, I mean, generally speaking, you want to get your heart rate in the 120, 130, 140. That's kind of the minimal threshold where you're going to start to see some of those responses happen.
So, in basic terms, getting your heart rate elevated and keeping it elevated for
30 minutes, 40 minutes, 20
somewhere
minutes,
in that
something,
range is going to keep your resting heart rate lower.
Absolutely.
And just keep you healthier in general.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is metabolically we need more frequency than we need strength work. Like you can lift pretty, if you go 2-3 days a week of good, hot, heavy strength training, at the very least you're not going to lose much strength. You should be able to maintain that, and most average people can gain it. A couple of days a week of low-level activity and aerobically is not going to do much beyond a moderate level or very low level. So we need more frequent stimulus from the metabolic conditioning standpoint. So I don't know what you're doing now, but you literally need to be doing some kind of metabolic work 4 or 5 days a week.
I have done that and had it not had a huge difference, but if I stopped or if I slowed down for a week or for whatever is like a couple months ago, I was up in Oregon when this fires and all that stuff, and then I had just like this thing that wouldn't stop, and I don't really feel like anything cardio for a week or so, and my heart rate went from the low 70s to the 80s in the course of a week.
That's really high. Yeah, that's really
just
high.
Like boom.
I mean, there definitely are some people that just genetically have higher heart rates too. I mean, I'd be curious to see what your actual HRV is.
Yeah,
that'd be a more important number to see, honestly. I mean, we have a Brazilian guy who would literally jog and be at 210 beats per minute and be talking to you. Like, there's just some genetic people that have higher heart rates. So you might just have a higher heart rate, but I'd be curious to see, how does that translate into HRV? If your HRV looks good, I wouldn't be so worried about it. If your HRV is shitty, I'd be more concerned about it.
It seems like there's quite a bit of information out there about hypertrophy. There's a lot of information about strength training. And within all that, there's a lot of information. And there's a lot of different ways of doing it all. What are some things that the average person listening to this might be able to incorporate into their training that would improve their conditioning, like some sort of circuits or something that you do that you can kind of think of that people have access to?
Yeah, the easiest thing, 2 to 3 times a week, do some sort of what we call metabolic circuits, where, again, our cardiac output circuits, roadwork 2.0, whatever you want to call it, heart rate like 130, 150, maybe 160. The new Morpheus app will actually give you a green zone, depending on your fatigue, so you just stay in the green zone. But if you do those workouts 2 or 3 days a week at a lower intensity, and then another 2 or 3 days a week of higher intensity work, and it could be sprinting, it could be elliptical, depending on what you're doing. But if you spend literally just 2 or 3 days in those moderate heart rates, and then 2 to 3 days at those higher heart rates, I don't care what you're doing. Like, that's ultimately what you're just going to take. It takes enough high intensity to get you there, but not so much high intensity that you ultimately fatigue and overtrain. So again, to me, it's about the balance.
There's a lot of different ways to get there. Right? You can do a 20-second burst, and you can rest a minute.
Yeah,
right?
If your heart rate's in the right range and your frequency, again, I think it's people spend way too much time sweating the details. Right. If your heart rate's in the right range and your frequency is right, you'll get the results. So the biggest thing is you've got to be consistent. Aerobic work is not something you can do 3 times 1 week and then take a week off and then come back and do another. You cannot take weeks off or 2 weeks off. You will lose a big percentage of it.
How do we like double down and save time? Can we do a farmer's carry and have that count for something?
Not really, to be honest with you.
Push a sled
for the higher intensity stuff, yes. For the lower intensity stuff, I would tend to avoid it. Primarily because when we drive our blood pressure up, it tends to have a different impact on the heart. The heart tends to react against that blood pressure and become more stiff and rigid.
Damn.
What we're trying to do is get it to actually expand.
That's a really bad example then, because when you clamp down on something even just with your fingers, your blood pressure goes through the fucking roof,
so
right?
In the higher intensity stuff, sure, you can do that.
Awful exercise. I'm not good at any of this stuff.
For the higher intensity work,
Right,
sure. For the lower intensity work, I would tend to avoid lifting type exercises. I mean, you want stuff that keeps the blood pressure lower. You want it more continual. You want the heart. If you think about the heart like a balloon, you want the heart doing this, nice and gradually expanding. If you're doing a bunch of high intensity or high blood pressure work, it's not going to have quite the same impact. So again, you need some of both. It's not do all this or do all that. It's find the right balance between the two.
Right, and it's kind of more of the thought of don't sweat the details too much, but also don't get it all jumbled up. Like if you're going to do your hypertrophy work, then you work on that, and you're not trying to implement that into some sort of weird conditioning circuit.
No, exactly. You can't take 10 different methods and put them in a blender and think it's going to taste good.
It's like eating high carb and keto at the same time. I just keep getting fatter.
That's called backloading, carb backloading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, John Kiefer, he nailed that, didn't he? That son of a bitch. So what else you got going on? You got some new things going on. You mentioned Lifetime Fitness, I think?
Yeah. It's not new to me. It's been a year now. But so about a year ago, Lifetime Fitness, and if your listeners don't know who they are, they're the second biggest gym chain in the U.S. They've got over 1 million members, 100-plus gyms, and they're high-end. I mean, these are not cheap gyms. These are expensive gyms with amazing amenities. And they have 3,000 to 4,000 trainers roughly, and they do huge amounts of money in the personal training space. They do more personal training revenue than any company in the U.S. hands down.
Wow.
By probably fivefold. But
That's pretty good for your resume, then.
Yeah, the problem is what they were lacking is, you can see a company of that size, it's difficult. They didn't have a standardized approach across their trainers. They didn't necessarily have the lifetime method or philosophy that all their trainers subscribe to, or they didn't have it, where they wanted it to be. And it's, again, it's a problem of big companies figuring out how do you put 3,000 to 4,000 trainers on the same page and educate them consistently is not easy. So they essentially brought me in to do that, to help them create this lifetime philosophy structure that all their personal trainers would buy into and at least have some common ground. So you wouldn't go to one lifetime and get one workout program and go to another lifetime and get something totally different. At least they would have some common structure. So I went in, worked with their team. And here's the other thing that's amazing to me about Lifetime. They have lab testing there. They have metabolic testing there. They have really good supplements there. Like, they have dietitians on staff and nutrition coaching. Like, as a gym, they have more services and products and shit than any other gym out there by far. I mean, no other gym that I'm aware of can you walk in and get lab testing done and have an RD actually read your results to you.
When you saw that, would you blow your mind?
I was blown away. I mean, their facilities have swimming pools and they have water slides.
It almost sounds like we'd be able to get something like that paid for with insurance or something like that.
Yeah, there's actually a gym in Seattle that does it, and I've talked to them about doing that. But my point was, like, they have all these amazing services, but the trainers were left to kind of navigate that and figure out, like, who needs blood testing and which blood tests they need, or how's your nutrition coach play. And the trainers had to do a lot of the kind of groundwork. So I just essentially worked with Lifetime to help them put together.
Man, I want to train there.
It's a hell of a gym.
I mean, could you imagine? I mean, that I don't know why that never occurred to me before, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, they've had these programs in place.
You're going to the gym to get healthier, but no one there is going to monitor your health.
Yeah. I mean, they're actually...
You're on your own.
So they're going away from the name Lifetime Fitness. Now they're Lifetime because they want to have that approach. But like I said, they have cafes in almost all their gyms with healthy shakes, and they have supplements there. Like, they have all the things. What they were kind of lacking is putting the pieces together for the trainers to make their jobs easier to have an educational program. So the trainers knew which lab tests, they knew all these things. So I created a whole structure for them, and hands down, they have the best training program in the country now.
Fucking cool. Are they throughout the country?
Yeah. There's Texas. There's a bunch of California, or a few in California, Midwest. There's one coming out to Seattle where I'm at. They're in New York. Most of their gyms are like 50, 80, 100,000 square feet gyms. They're massive freaking gyms.
We have two in this area that I never realized before. One is in Roseville and the other one is in Folsom.
I'm telling you, it's the only gym chain I know of that has water slides and lab testing.
Sold.
Yeah, but
water slide,
when are we getting
sushi?
When are we getting a water slide?
Actually, one of their clubs they had sushi in it, for God's sakes. Not joking.
Yeah, no, isn't that amazing? I've seen that at some clubs before. That's really cool. It makes a lot of sense. And as I navigate the fitness industry, I get pretty frustrated sometimes that I get frustrated that the general public is so fucking fat and lazy sometimes. But then I also get frustrated, and I'm like, oh man, I wish we figured out ways of not making it easier is kind of the wrong wording, but just knocking down some of those barriers.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think sometimes the less you know, the less you care. And if somebody was like, hey man, you're a fucking ticking time bomb. You need help, and you need it now. Like if you went somewhere and they were like, okay, we saw your blood work. It's not good.
Yep.
But we're here to help. We know you got kids and that kind of stuff. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, and that can help save a lot of lives.
Oh yeah, to me that was what I really liked. Like, I'm not gonna lie, my background, of course, was I own my own small gym. Like you've always kind of looked at like the big bucks gym as not the enemy, but kind of the old school like shitty, right? Yeah. Like, oh, who the hell cares about them? Like they're old and shitty. Their training sucks.
Piece of shit, yeah.
Yeah, but Lifetime had a much different approach. They basically realized like, we want our trainers to be the best educated. We have all these services. Like we want to give our members something they can't get anywhere else. Work with us to do that. And most companies wouldn't go outside their own expertise, right? They wouldn't go hire someone like me to come in and help them build that out. Yeah. And they were basically like, look, we want to have the best program. We want to deliver the best results. We want to have the best services. We want to have the best facilities. And we want to create change in the industry. We want to actually create the ability to do
There's
it.
There's a water slide.
Yeah, it's no joke. So, like I said, I was blown away. It was my first experience really kind of seeing the corporate side of it, because they're a $1 billion company. They have thousands and thousands of employees. So the decision making is so much different than your little gym chain, like a little gym like mine is ever going to be. So I saw that side of it, but their main interest is literally in
the cardio room. Looks amazing.
Like cardio theater.
Yeah, they have cardio theaters. They've got, literally, like I said, pools.
Gigantic pool.
Yeah, indoor and outdoor.
Yeah, this is one of the ones in our area.
Yeah.
How do you make money in the fitness industry when you're a coach and trainer? Obviously, you have your own gym, and so that's a kind of a starting point. But how have you? I know like sometimes a little luck may play into it because you meet the right person at the right time, but it's also a byproduct of a lot of hard work.
Yep.
These things don't just completely happen by accident. So how have you been able to do these things for so long, and how does somebody turn their knowledge into some bucks?
I would love to say I intentionally, became someone who was teaching stuff online, but I was kind of sitting around one night, and this is actually goes back to my mom had a stroke.
You were aware of that years and years ago too. So you're like, a lot of people are jumping in now, but
this is probably 2000. This is about 2008, right? Yeah. So my mom had a stroke. It was a really tough time for me because we were really close, and she was a flight attendant, and I was in. Basically, the story was she had a stroke in Miami. We live in Seattle, so I spent like 3 weeks down in Miami with her, and my gym suffered tremendously. I was losing hand over fist money because at that point I was a one-man show. I had a couple of other people, but realistically the gym depended on me to make money. Like if I wasn't there, the gym wasn't making much money, and I didn't really have any operational anything. I was just a good trainer with the gym basically. So my mom has a stroke. I realized like shit, like I don't have a real business. Like I'm just a good personal trainer making money from personal training, and I've just lost a ton of money. My mom has a stroke. I'm kind of depressed. Like shit was not good, right? Like life was not good. And so I get on this forum, and I don't know why I did, but it was a MMA forum, Sure Dog, and there's all these posts about
I've seen it before.
Right. There's always posts about conditioning, and I kind of just wrote this conditioning post like, hey, to solve your problems, like you guys need to take a more personalized approach. A lot of stuff on here is bullshit. So what happened? I got just flamed, right? Like, who the fuck are you? You don't know what you're talking about. Like, nice post, nude.
Go to T-Nation, you loser.
Exactly. So I was like, fuck you guys, right? So I started responding back, like, I just took him head on. I'm like, I'm not gonna let this one go. And so eventually,
I know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. So I was like, eventually somebody came on the forum that trained AMC and was like, you might want to listen to this guy. Here's all the people he's worked with. He's worked with Matt Hume for 10 years or whatever it was at the time. So people are like, oh shit. So it turned into this huge post that had thousands. I think it had 400,000 views by the time we were done with it.
Holy crap.
So then I thought, I'm going to create a website and see if I can actually do something on this. Maybe this is a good way to supplement my income and help build a business and a real company. So I still wasn't sure. I created 8 weeks out, and I just kind of posted like, hey, I've created a website, a forum, come over here. And sure enough, I had people joining. So then I
always like that name a lot, by the way. I think
8 weeks out.
I think it's really smart. I mean, I know that the fighters kind of use that terminology, and you'll hear bodybuilders kind of say stuff like that. But there's something about 8 weeks that's not that intimidating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
true.
So
12 weeks, someone's like, fuck, man, I got to throw my whole life away.
it's 60 days, P60X, not P90X.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, I create 8 weeks out, and then I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to write a book. And I'd never written a book. Like, I'd never done any of that. And I'm deciding, like, is this really going to make money? Am I going to, like, again, I had no expectation. I didn't really know. So the funny thing was, I'm like, I'm just going to write half of this thing, and then I'll put it on, like, a pre-order, and I'll see if anyone buys it. If they don't buy it, like, so be it. So I write.
Great.
So
you
I
wrote
wrote
half the book.
I wrote half the book, and I put it pre-order.
amazing.
Yeah, and so then I had
a great idea.
I had like 300 or 400 orders in like 24
genius.
hours. So I'm like, holy shit! Like, people are buying this thing now. I got to finish the damn book.
Was that
My-
your
my
heart
problem
rate
was-
variability book?
No, it was just Ultimate MMA Conditioning.
Oh, okay.
So the problem was, it took me like 3 times as long to write the second half as the first half.
You're sitting there counting your money.
Oh yeah, so then people were getting pissed. I was getting emails like, "Where the fuck my book? Like, this is bullshit. I ordered this 2 months ago. You said it was gonna be a week, you know." So people were not happy with me, but eventually I did finish the book and got it out there, and it caught on, and
Right.
and that's kind of where everything started. So again, I wish I'd said it was this genius plan I had to build a gym and then build a business online, but it was just kind of one of those things where I realized I found something was missing in my business, and that was, I didn't have any way to make
Right.
money if I wasn't training people. I didn't really have a company. I just had a personal, just a trainer with a gym, and
Yeah,
then
you
online kind of
should-
evolved out of
yeah.
that.
Trading time for money. Is
Yeah,
what they
exactly.
say.
I mean,
Yeah.
the biggest thing
Yeah.
I've learned, and this comes down to, I don't care if you just want to be a trainer and run a gym, or you want to be a strength coach for a team, it's the relationships that you build and the hard work that you put in that gets you success. I mean, I don't care what side of it you're in. If you meet the right people and you build those connections and you're genuine in your approach to try to help people, then I think, generally speaking, you'll find a way sooner or later.
Yeah, and these things have a tendency to kind of cycle around. You'll meet one person, and you're like, oh, okay, that guy was pretty cool. And then you go talking to some other people, and boom, that guy pops back up again.
Oh, yeah.
And he pops up again, and it's like, you're not necessarily like, waiting or trying to create a business relationship or doing anything that makes it seem like you're desperate or anything, but there's always something there. Maybe the guy owns a T-shirt company and he can help you out and you can help him out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows what it is, right?
Yeah,
but it's always kind
It's a relationship game. If young strength coaches always ask, like, the college, how do I become a strength coach in college? I'm like, go volunteer your time somewhere and make good friends and do a good job. And like, sooner or later, that shit's going to work for you. And it's the same thing if you're trying to be online. You're trying to educate people. Like, don't be a dick. Know what you're talking about and build relationships. And,
Right.
Just do your best to build those connections and to give out quality information. I mean, I don't even know how many articles I wrote for free. I mean, I wrote massive amounts of content. You guys put out massive amounts of videos for free. It's, if you educate people and you do a good job and you're sincere in that, they'll find you and they'll want to give you money to learn more. I mean, that's just what it comes down to.
Tell us about Mighty Mouse Johnson. What makes him, so last fight, he has the most title defenses in UFC history, correct?
Yep.
And you've been with him for the last 5 years?
I mean, I've seen him grow from the beginning. So I used to judge actually Matt's amateur fights. So I judged Mighty Mouse's like first amateur fights in MMA and boxing. Yeah, I judged all of his fights.
So I didn't realize that about your
He started-
background. You were into MMA for a long time.
I was into MMA
Did you do jiu-jitsu and stuff like
no,
that?
I just
as well?
opened. So the story was, I opened my gym next door to AMC without really knowing shit about AMC or what MMA was, because there wasn't anything back then. This is 2003, so 2003. So I opened the gym up, and a few months later, this guy walks over and he's like, "Hey, can you get me ready for K1?" And I'm like, "What the hell's K1?" And he's like, "Oh, it's kickboxing." I'm like, "Oh."
And who was that?
Yeah, it's Ivan Salaverry. So I got a funny story about Ivan. So Ivan comes over. He's like, "Yeah."
Who runs that gym? That's a famous gym. Right?
AMC is Matt Hume.
Yeah, so Matt Hume is
He's the best in the
arguably
world.
the greatest of all time.
I don't
right?
think it's arguable. I mean, he's the best there is.
Oh, they reference him all the time.
Yeah, he's the best there is. And so Ivan came over and said, "Hey, I need
That's
to get in
fucking
shape."
crazy. I didn't know that side. I didn't know that side of the story. I'm kind of freaking out.
So Ivan comes over and says, "Hey, can you get me ready for K1?" I'm like, "I guess. I don't know." So
And
sure,
you
I'll
don't
figure
really
it
know
out.
who he is or anything.
No, I didn't. No idea. I mean, again, back then the sport was so underground. I mean, no one knew who these guys were. So Ivan comes over. I start training Ivan. I'm like, God, this guy is fucking weak, right? Like, so my background in strength and football, I'm like, I'm just going to lift this guy to death and make him super strong, and that's going to be, that's all he needs. So I do this for a couple months, and then I go over to AMC. He's like, "Why don't you come train with us?" So I'm like, "All right, I'll see what these guys are all about." and I just got my ass handed to me, right? Like way stronger than them for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you get choked out endlessly and wrapped up like a pretzel and beat to shit. So I was like, maybe strength isn't the only thing these guys need, right? And so I realized, I'm like, shit, I don't know anything about conditioning. Like, this is not my area. You know, I was purely football and powerlifting. Like, this is not anything I knew about. So I was like, I better figure it out because these guys are counting on me now. So I just read and read and read. And, you know, I was fortunate to talk to Matt and saw what they were already doing. And there was Maurice Smith, who's another famous guy.
Absolutely.
Maurice Smith's in the gym. So Randy Couture. Like,
Maurice Smith's a legend.
Yeah, I mean, so we used to have Matt, Maurice, Randy, Ivan, Josh Barnett. I mean, all these guys were in the gym every day. So
Randy Couture.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, no one who any of these guys were. You know, we'd go to lunch with all these. No one would come up to Randy and ask for an autograph. This is way before the UFC became anything. So
that's pretty crazy.
I basically just had no clue what I was doing until I realized like how little I knew about conditioning. So as soon as I figured that out, I'm like, shit, I need to learn this stuff. And so I spent years essentially figuring out how to get these guys in better shape. And all the credit in the world goes to Matt, because if you don't have a good head coach, I don't care what kind of shape your guys are in, they're going to get beat up because they don't have the technique. And Matt, is the best in the world without question in my mind. His ability to take a fighter from, he's taken two guys. He's the only person, to my knowledge at least, that's taken two guys from off the street to world champion. Josh Barnett, heavyweight, Mighty Mouse, the smallest weight, 125. So he took
Josh
guys.
Barnett, those people that are, that
Josh
follow
is a beast, right?
the fight game. Yeah, absolute beast. But genetically, you're not thinking you're
No,
looking at the greatest athlete of all time.
definitely not. I mean, look at him; he looks like he's, needs to go to Jenny Craig or something. But super talented fighter. And,
absolutely, yeah.
And literally, that credit goes to Matt, because Matt, to me, in my mind, is the only person that can take somebody literally off the street. And that's what DJ was, a high school wrestler. Josh Barnett was a high school wrestler. That's all they'd ever done. They'd never trained MMA. They'd never trained jiu-jitsu.
That's absolutely
no
great.
boxing.
That's insanity.
And they walked off the street, and Matt took him to world champion. The funny thing is, Matt told, I don't remember me, or he told a few people, within like a month or maybe even less of seeing DJ train off the street, he said, that guy's going to be a world champion. And he saw it early on. It was unbelievable. So, what makes DJ the best is his work ethic, his he obviously is genetically blessed. But to me, I've seen a lot of pro athletes over the years. And a lot of pro athletes, once they reach a certain level of success, and you probably have seen this, their motivation to keep getting better tends to decline with the higher they get, right? Like, I'm already at the top. I'm already making my money. Like, I'm successful. They're not going to put in the same work they put in when they were down here. But DJ is not like that. He's literally the same athlete, the same guy right now as he was when he was fighting amateurs in AMC. He takes the same approach to it. He treats it like a job. He treats it like a professional. He treats it like, his career. And he comes in and day out, and he does his work. He's had the same team of coaches around him since the very beginning. He didn't go run off and try to get new coaches. He lost the fight, the first fight to Cruz. He didn't freak out and go, I need a whole new team. He stuck with Matt and AMC. And, just his ability to keep progressing and just keep his focus on that and never think he's made it. It's why he keeps winning. It's why he keeps getting better when a lot of other guys don't. And it's been fun to watch. I mean, I'm fortunate to have been around it, honestly. I mean, you don't get to see athletes.
Is there anything that you
like
see him do where you kind of like, take a step back and you're like, I mean, you probably almost see it on a daily basis. So you probably just sit there and like almost make a note of it. Is there's anything you've ripped out of the page of Mighty Mouse Johnson's book?
just his ability to adapt, honestly. I mean, and that's kind of something Matt would talk about. Like, when a fighter really gets good, he can see what's going to happen before it's going to happen, and make the adjustment before he needs to. Like, you see Mighty Mouse, you see him make those adjustments like the last finish, right? He sees what he needs to do, and he's able to make the adjustment like that. Versus other guys, like, even if they see it, they don't know how to necessarily adjust, and they don't know how to react to their opponents. Like, DJ has now got to the point where he can see what the opponent's doing, know what the reaction is, and then execute it like all flawlessly, right? Like his ability to just adapt in the fight is amazing. So you watch him spar and you watch him just kill people because he's able to, whatever you're doing, like, he's going to figure it out and then respond and put it all together better than anybody else out there. So. And
so for his last fight, I mean, that was a historical fight, and you said you weren't able to even be there?
Yeah, I was in Slovenia, of all places, doing a seminar.
Because somebody got hurt or something, right?
Yeah, so we were in Edmonton, and the guy he just fought, Ray Borsch, pulled out because of a infection or whatever it was. He pulled out of the fight like on Thursday. I got up there on Thursday, and then they're like, oh, the fight's off. So we'd all went to Edmonton for nothing, basically, and just kind of hung out in Edmonton and watched the fights. And unfortunately, they rescheduled that fight for when I'd already planned a seminar. I'd intentionally planned the seminar away from the fight, but then they rescheduled it on that fight. So I was, unfortunately, I had to miss it and had to see it secondhand. But
I remember that because Mighty Mouse was like, "I'm in shape. I'm going to fight now." Yeah. And the UFC, I think they met him halfway there, and they scheduled a fight just a few weeks later.
Yeah, they scheduled a fight. I mean, I don't know how the pay worked, but he's obviously frustrated because he shows up and he's making weight and he's training hard, and now he's got to push it back a few weeks and make weight again.
I think that's great when the fighters stand up for themselves. I remember Bones has done that before when he's supposed to fight somebody and they switched the opponent last minute and stuff like that. And sometimes the fighter's like, I ain't doing it.
Yeah, no, I think DJ, if you read the forums, the forums are full of shit 90% of the time. He gets way more, lack of respect than he should. People don't realize, like, it is a business. If you're in the career and your job is fighting, it is a business, and you're making business decisions.
How long can he do it for?
And how long can you do it for? You're fighting for your family. You're fighting for your future. Like, it's stupid to take a fight that's a stupid fight, or stupid to take a fight for no money. Like, you have to maximize your earning potential, same way the guys in the pros do. I mean, NFL players aren't going to take a $10 million pay cut to play for one team versus another. Generally, they're going to maximize their earning potential while they can. And DJ is not going to take a stupid fight for a stupid amount of money. He's going to fight intelligently, and he's going to fight fights that make sense. And it's people, he's ducking people, or he's afraid to fight. I mean, really?
Yeah, he's like killed everybody.
No, and what boggles my mind too is, he needs to go up to 135. He was like 14-2 at 135, and he fought Dominic Cruz for a title at 135. Like, don't act like he can't go up in weight. He was very good at that weight class. He beat solid fighters at 135. He only had 2 losses at 135. Anderson Silva went up to 185 twice. Yeah, didn't fight for a title there. Mighty Mouse has been there and done that. You can't act like he's afraid of people at 135 when he fought there for the majority of his career. It's crazy.
What's a fight camp look like for him? There's got to be quite a few people involved.
There's not actually.
Does he have a nutritionist and stuff like that? Or are you the one that kind of takes over strength, conditioning, nutrition?
No, his nutrition is pretty much on point. At this point, everything is very routine, very regimented. Like, it's not like every fight camp it's going to be totally different stuff.
Right.
Like, it's basically the same stuff he's been doing most of his career. We have the same teriyaki madness every day, the same foods eat every day, same going to the pool and doing pool workouts, same basic lifting. Mostly what changes is just the opponent that he's fighting has a different strength and weakness. So the strategy and the drilling and the game plan is going to be different, but the actual train structure, none of that changes. And they spar twice a week. You usually swim a couple of days a week, lift a couple of days of weights. And then, again, all of it is about game plan for the opponent. It's not about like, DJ's going to run to death. Like, no, he's going to get a lot of the conditioning from MMA, and the rest should be keeping him healthy and maintaining his strength and making sure he can train properly. So there's, it's not like each camp we do something different. And to me, that's why he's won consistently, because everything he does is extremely consistent. And again, that's, Matt's been doing this for 25, 30 years. It's not like he's going to try something totally new now. He knows what works, and he's found, his style of coaching and how to approach it. And I'm really there to just supplement whatever way I can. Like I said, it's always a team-based approach, but Matt is the one who is the architect of all of it and puts it together. Right. And, he, like I said, he found DJ and put him together and built him from the ground up. So you can't argue with that success.
So amazing.
It is. It really is.
Almost a little bit more like you just everybody's just kind of monitoring what he's doing.
Yeah.
So you're involved, and then Matt is involved, and then does he have I imagine he has a few other coaches.
Yeah, he's got a couple. Exactly. He's got a couple other assistant coaches that are his primary sparring partners.
What's a day look like?
Usually depends on the day, obviously, but he'll either come into my gym in the morning, usually by 11 o'clock, train for an hour and a half, and then he'll actually come down to, we have separate offices where we do Morpheus and all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. He'll play video games, so he's got a big Twitch following. So if you're listening, go watch DJ on Twitch.
That's cool.
He's got thousands of Twitch followers. He does a lot of work with Twitch. So plays video games for 3-4 hours and then goes back and does his night session. And that's pretty much it. Like, it's either come in and do stuff at my place, swim, video game, and then work out. But typically spar twice a week. The rest of the time's drilling and just basic technique and preparing for the particular opponent. They watch a lot of film, which I think is underutilized. A lot of MMA athletes don't watch film of their opponent, or they just have this stupid mentality like, I'm just gonna go fight him. Like, I'm gonna go do what I do. Like, no, you should actually learn what your opponent's gonna do and make sure what you're doing is countering what he's going to do, right? You know, NFL teams don't go, oh, I'm just going to go play the 49ers like or the Patriots. Like, no, you're going to watch film and you're going to drill all week and you're going to have a scout team try to replicate their plays. Like, you're going to you know, put your package of plays together and your personnel against them. Like, so they watch a ton of film. And like I said, the biggest thing is it's so routine. Like, he doesn't do things differently from week to week. It's not like, oh, what should we do today? No, it's Monday's this, Tuesday's this, Wednesday's this, Thursday's this. It's consistency, and that's why he's so successful. It's consistency.
It's like those guys that have all the same wardrobe for every single day.
Yeah, totally. I mean, absolutely. And it comes down to this, in my opinion, that the more things that you change on a frequent basis, the more the body struggles to kind of get used to it, right?
Yeah.
If you're used to your routine, your body can adapt to that routine well. If it's like all chaotic and it's all over the place, the body struggles to respond to that because it's learning. Like, anytime you put something new on the body, it's a stressor, right? So if you do a totally new type of workout, all of a sudden you're sore, even though you may have done very similar lifts, or those muscle groups certainly are working other lifts. If you eat new kinds of food, like, you may react to it differently. The more new things you introduce to somebody, the more the body has to learn and respond.
I got crushed by that power tower thing out there, the kind of VersaClimber looking thing. That thing, I just never done it. I've never done exercise like that before.
So that's what it comes down to, you know.
I couldn't believe how sore I was. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, so I mean, if you go into a camp and all of a sudden you're doing all this new shit and all these new things, like, you're just making the stress on the athlete 10 times higher. So a lot of it is just about continuing to do what you've done and building routines and habits that just are consistent from day in, day out. And again, that's why DJ's won 11 straight title fights. You know, that's why he's as consistent. You've never seen DJ show up and have a shitty performance.
He's so damn fast.
You know, he's always ready to fight, and he's always, you know, going to fight his best because he's consistent in everything that he does from day one to, you know, fight day. Fight camps are always the same. The pre-week is always the same. The weigh-in process is always the same. I mean, it's so routine that you know exactly what you're going to get out of it. And that's the mistake I think fighters and athletes make in general, is they don't keep track of what their routines are, and they change them constantly. Right. Like, find what works for you and stick to it.
Well, and then also too, everyone just panics, right? Like, so like, you know, you miss a lift, you know, in training, and then you think, oh shit, everything's wrong. I got to do this, I got to do that, and it's like, well, maybe not everything's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe your program's actually pretty good. Maybe your coach is pretty good.
Yep.
As you mentioned, he stayed with the same coach. Maybe you just need to go back and change, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point. I mean, we get people that'll contact, you know, Matt typically and say, hey, I really want to come train. And it's like some guy that just lost the fight in the UFC or just lost. It's like, dude, just because you lost the fight, like, throwing out your entire camp, or thinking that just jumping into Matt's camp is all of a sudden going to solve your problems. You know, Matt's always like, no, like, you know, I'm putting my effort into my guys. You coming into my camp's probably not going to make you better. It's probably make you worse.
That way.
No, it doesn't work that way. And we used to have more guys come, honestly. And you'd see, like, they would show up and they would get their ass kicked too. But, you know, Matt would trash them, or other guys in the gym would just trash them because the styles were so different. And then they would just look defeated, you know, like, it was such a new thing for them, the new way of training, new philosophy, new technique. And they would be worse off in the short run because all this stuff was being thrown at them. And then they'd go in the fight and they would second guess themselves and they wouldn't feel comfortable. Like, you're better off just fixing the little things that were wrong and, you know, continue to progress and trying to throw the baby out the bathwater and start from scratch.
That's interesting. And people underestimate exactly how much mental energy having to make decisions about new things all the time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Another stress.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do with some of the information? You know, you got the heart rate variability. Why is it so important? And what are some things that you've done with the information that you feel has made the biggest difference?
You know, the biggest thing is, again, I just started to see over and over again. So we took... I've got 1.5 million data points of HRV now.
That ain't bad.
About 15,000 plus people, right? So we have a lot of HRV from a lot of people, a lot of ages, a lot of goals. And we wrote some machine learning algorithms to essentially look at, like, could we find a pattern, right? Like, could we find the right amount of stress where people would consistently improve? And basically what we found was, like, the more frequently people push away from their baseline, the more likely they were to get worse. The more consistently they had just little variations up and down that are fairly close to their baseline, the more likely they were to continue to improve. So basically what we found is, like, people that are constantly, like, stressed all the freaking time, like, they're always in this variation of, like, all over the map, but less, basically what we found is less is more. People that were consistent but not overexerting themselves, not overreaching, not overtraining. In the long run, we saw their numbers going up, and we saw everyone else's numbers either staying the same or getting worse. So the biggest thing we've learned, again, from data is, the way I approach things now is think about every hard session you do. What are you doing from a recovery standpoint? Are you doing a recovery training session? Are you doing a float tank or getting a massage? You know, are you improving your sleep? So I've just put a much bigger emphasis on those lifestyle factors in the training session. Stop sweating the details and focus on the balance. And that's really what it comes down to. So many people in this industry are so wrapped up in a one-legged lift versus a two-legged lift, right? 10 reps versus 12 reps, 3 sets versus 4 reps.
That's not sports specific. You can't do it that
Yeah,
way.
I mean, that shit in the grand scheme of things, from what I've seen, is so minuscule in terms of your overall picture of how you look and feel and perform. Yeah. It's the big things that matter. And don't get me wrong, exercise selection has a role.
Yeah.
But if you're spending hours sweating your exercise selection, your diet's not dialed in, your sleep's not dialed in, you're stressed out all the time, who cares about exercise selection? So, I think the biggest thing we've seen from the data is like, shit, you've really got to think about balance, and you've got to realize that the 23 hours a day you're not in the gym affect you way more than the 1 hour you're in the gym. So
how is the heart rate checked? Like, is it just a regular heart rate monitor? Or
yeah, so the BioForce we have a chest strap, or we have a finger sensor. Morpheus is just a little strap, basically goes around your wrist.
Wearable.
It's a wearable, goes on your wrist or go around your arm, but it's 2.5 minute test, so you don't have to wear it around all day. You do a 2.5 minute test, boom, you get your recovery, and then you can wear it again for your workout or use a chest strap or whatever else you want to use. So. And
there's an app connected to it?
The app basically reads your data, pulls everything off your phone. If you are wearing a Fitbit or other types of devices, the Morpheus will pull that out as well. So it'll look at whatever other device you're using and pull the data in. And then it just gives you, like I said, it gives you a recovery score. It shows you your trends and puts a piece together for you.
Wow, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And you were saying the heart rate variability. This is not something that you discovered. It's like
Russians discovered it.
Russians, you learned it from that Russian guy.
So literally, the first man in space is Yuri Gagarin. His name is a Russian dude. They used HRV in his first flight. Wow. So this shit's been around for
61.
Yeah,
I think,
it's been around forever, right?
So you're using it for fitness, and you're mentioning how it plays a role in health in general.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you think that this should be something that's used in the medical profession?
Well, I mean, it is to some extent. And if you go to PubMed or any research journal and you type in heart rate variability, there's thousands and thousands of papers on it. I mean, this is something that's been studied for 50 plus years.
Right.
I think it's just in the last 5 years started to get more into the mainstream, and people have started thinking about it more. Right. You do have some of the bigger companies like Garmin and Polar starting to incorporate some of it, but it takes education, right? It takes some time to explain to people how it all works. And again, that's part of why I created Morpheus. Was BioForce would give you your HRV number, and it would give you kind of a general gauge of fatigue, but it's up to you to figure out what's next. Morpheus takes HRV along with everything else and gives you specific heart rate zones. Train this zone for recovery, train this zone for conditioning. So I think the more simplified we can make data and HRV in general, the more mainstream it's going to catch on. And then I actually do have a lot of doctors that have been using it and that do use their patients. It's more about, again, it's an educational process. It just takes time. But, HRV as a single number is going to predict your likelihood of diseases way better than,
Yeah, you can probably tell a lot by seeing the heart rate variability, seeing it moving around and stuff.
Yeah, huge amount. I mean,
how is it measured again? You said it's like what is it exactly? It's not your heartbeat, right?
No, it's basically, so what happens is, when your heart beats, people instinctively think it's like a metronome. They think it beats very evenly, right? You'd think that. So if your heartbeat was 60 beats a minute, you'd think that every second your heart is beating, right?
It's more how it reacts.
Yeah, so your heartbeat's not actually like that. Your heartbeat speeds up and slows down constantly.
Right.
Because what happens is, as the parasympathetic system turns on, it slows the heart rate down. As it turns off, then the heart rate speeds back up. And since the parasympathetic system works with our respiratory cycle, as we breathe in and out, that changes the parasympathetic nervous system. Specifically, when we exhale, we're activating the parasympathetic nervous system. So on our exhale, we're slowing the heart rate down. As we inhale, the heart rate is speeding back up. So essentially what we're doing, what heart rate variability does, is just it looks at that pattern, boom, 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 boom. It looks at the rhythm of the heart rate, and from that rhythm it just does math, and it can determine how active that parasympathetic nervous system is, and then it translates that into an HRV number, which is, it's a variability. The more variable the heart rate, the more variable your heart rate is. So it's heart rate variability. That's where it comes from.
Is it good for it to be more varied?
To an extent, yes.
Yeah.
So in general, a higher heart rate variability number means you have higher parasympathetic function, so you're able to cope with stress, you're able to turn off inflammation, all these things are happening. But there definitely comes a point where it's too high, right? Or your ability to actually be stressed is so diminished.
Have
like
you
very high
has
state.
it gotten to the point where you've seen so much data, like where if Jim sends you the information, you can kind of almost picture in your head how he's going to be, like personality-wise and stuff?
I wouldn't say personality-wise, but you definitely see.
I mean, like I guess not personality, but more like lifestyle.
Yeah, you absolutely.
Like, you're like, this guy probably, he probably wakes up pretty early, and he probably does A, B, C. He's well rested. I can see all that.
I mean,
that kind of thing.
You probably can see better if they do that or not. I can't necessarily figure out why it's low, right? Until you get, but you can definitely see, hey, this guy's a powerlifter. He needs some help, right? Like maybe he's strong as shit, but his conditioning is garbage.
Right.
Versus somebody who's like, oh, this person's pretty well balanced. They're adaptable. And actually, the first place I saw that was Heath. Like, so I started when I first got the system. I started working the Seahawks not long after. And I started measuring a lot of NFL players. And before that, I'd only measured like average Joes for the most part, and some college athletes here and there. And the first thing I saw was holy shit, like these pro-level football players had higher HRV, and they recovered way faster than your average person. Like some of those guys, no shit, would go out, they'd do their first morning practice, and I'd measure them in the afternoon. They looked more recovered after their first practice than they did in the morning, because that morning practice just kind of like stimulated recovery. Like they're just monster workhorses, right? Like their genetics are just insane. They're able to constantly recover from stress like none other. So you can see if like people are genetic freaks. You know, like my grandma was 86 when she died, but she smoked for 60 something years and drank screwdrivers for 60 years and never worked out a day in her life and ate like shit,
hell
right?
Of a woman.
Yeah, just genetically people have higher HRV and have better fitness levels, and you can see a lot of that. Like sometimes you'll test somebody, you know, average Joe schmo, overweight, boom, HRV is amazing. Or sometimes you'll see people look like they're in great shape, HRV is shit. So, you know, you can't, the numbers are what they are. Yeah. You can't guess by looking at somebody. You have to see what the numbers are and then work. I personally have shitty HRV. I have to really work at to have good HRV, and I unfortunately probably got my dad's cardiac side and my grandma's cardiac side. So I'm one of those people. I spent years lifting weights and not doing any conditioning in my younger years, and it takes me dedicated effort to get my HRV up to some point where other people can do nothing and just maintain it. So
you mentioned you know, some conditioning training, cardiovascular training, multiple times a week. About four times
do something,
a week, right?
Something.
And you mentioned it can be low intensity, and you mentioned to bring in some high intensity as well. So we know that those two things can help it quite a bit. Does lifting weights help it in general too?
To an extent.
But you said lifting adds stress, so like how does that?
Again, to an extent. So
right.
It's part of the process. If we lift the right amount, our body becomes more resilient at handling the stress hormones. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to introduce some amount of stress, and then we're trying to let our body recover from it. And then we introduce some more stress, and then we recover from it. In that process, our body gets better at dealing with what? Stress. So lifting weights is certainly a part of that process because it's a different type of stress than cardiovascular, right? But again, it comes down to weight training can produce a shit ton of inflammation because a lot of the inflammation is released in the muscles when you do a lot of high intensity work. You're causing lots of inflammation. So it has the potential, I would say, to almost create a bigger overall inflammatory response than, you know, your average cardio session is going to. So again, you got to be careful and make sure it's balanced. So it's everything. You know, if you balance your weight training, it's absolutely going to provide benefit, and your HRV can go up. If you overdo it, it's going to have the opposite impact. So it's the same thing. You know, it's always about that balance, and that person's ability to find that balance is the most important thing.
Have you seen any supplements or anything like that help with reducing stress? You know, obviously it's going to matter the guy's blood work and what he's deficient in, sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that is the big thing is you always start with what are they deficient in, and they lacking. Aside from that, you know, a lot of times people have chronic inflammation that's going on they aren't aware of or can't get rid of. So some of the, you know, curcumins and some of the anti-inflammatories, I've seen injectable B12 work really well, or sublingual B12, rhodiola rosea. Some of those kind of adaptogen supplements I've seen work pretty well, but fish oil, there's actually studies on fish oil raising HRV out there. Wow. So anything that can help reduce inflammation is typically going to be supportive of people's HRV going up and make a difference.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What do you have coming up next? Aren't you going to LA, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go to LA for just a few days with the family and hang
just
out,
for the hell of it.
Just for the hell of it.
Cool.
But yeah, just working on getting Morpheus launched here coming up shortly, and then I got a trip to Costa Rica in the springtime, do some seminars down there, and
cool.
You know, just another day.
Where can people find you?
So 8 Weeks Out is where all my main articles, content, videos, everything's at, and then trainwithmorpheus.com, just like it sounds, Train with Morpheus, if you want to find more about Morpheus and high performance recovery and how we actually use Morpheus to help optimize recovery and optimize conditioning. So those two sites, 8 Weeks Out, Train with Morpheus. I'm on Facebook as well. I'm not the Instagram, Twitter master that you are, but Facebook, I'm on there, and 8 Weeks Out.
awesome. Multiply your hustle, multiply your muscle, and may all your shits be tapered. I'm at Mark Smellybell on Instagram and Twitter. See y'all later.
Shout out to all of our sponsors, 8Man Apparel at 8manstrong.com, bodybuilding.com for all of your supplement needs, Compex USA for cutting-edge muscle stim machines. Get an additional 28% off when you use the code PowerCast on all but the lowest price model. Reebok.com, home of the legacy lifting shoe. Increase your bench at howmuchyoubench.net. Get 15% off slingshots with the code PowerCast. Power, the only strength magazine available in both digital and print at thepowermagazine.com. And Precision Nutrition. Get your free book on genetics and how they relate to your fitness and health. Especially for our listeners at get.pn/powercast. That's get.pn/powercast. I am at the Jim McD on all the social medias. Follow the show on Instagram. We are at Mark Bell's PowerCast. We're out of here.
Sweet.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. I'd love to do it anytime.